Hey, it's Matthew Cudmore, and welcome to Story Behind the Stone. In today's episode, we're joined by Karen Worcester, Executive Director and one of the founders of Wreaths across America. Join us as we explore how a family gift in 1992 has since transformed into a national movement. We'll hear from Karen as she speaks about the growth and the profound impact of Wreaths across America. In 2025, they saw over 3 million wreaths placed by over 3 million volunteers at over 5,000 locations. And to round out the show, we'll discuss why their mission continues every day of the year so that generations to come understand the true cost of freedom. Karen, thanks for the heart and the dedication that you and your family bring to this cause. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome to Story Behind the Stone, a show where we talk service, sacrifice, and story, connecting you with the individuals changing the way the world remembers. My name is Matthew Cudmore. I'm so pleased to welcome to the show today Karen Worcester, Executive Director of Wreaths Across America. Karen, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
For those unfamiliar, could you please introduce yourself and share an overview of Wreaths Across America?
I am Karen Worcester. I'm the executive director and one of the founders of Wreaths Across America, which sounds like we had a big plan, but it actually started in 1992. My family had been in the balsam production business. We made products for me, a lot of catalogs. And that year we had a surplus of wreaths. It was late in the season, and my husband wanted to do something meaningful. He recalls being at Arlington National Cemetery. He'd actually won a trip there as a paperboy when he was 12. And he never had forgotten the vastness of it. Even as a kid, it was something he came away with. He did not serve in the military. He was in school during Vietnam in college, but he wanted to do something meaningful. So he called to get permission. He called a local politician. They got permission for him and a local trucking company to take 5,000 wreaths down to Arlington to place on the graves as a thank you from our family and an opportunity to teach our kids. And he took a couple of our kids with him, the boys, the teenagers. And they went down, they met a handful of volunteers, maybe 10 people, took all day to place 5,000 wreaths on the oldest section of the cemetery, which is the Civil War section. And it was life altering for them as they placed the wreaths and said the names, and many were unknown in that area, and then the young age of many and just the vastness of it. And they came home and they talked about it and talked about it and learned so much from it that they decided, and we decided, if we could do it, we'd do it again every year. So every year after that, the wreaths were made intentionally. My husband would take a volunteer. They'd drive straight down, put the wreaths on, and come back because it was still in the middle of our busy season. And that's the way it went from 1992 to 2005. It was just a gift from the family and a local trucking company and a handful of volunteers. They moved us to a different section in the cemetery every year. But in 2005, a Pentagon photographer took a picture of the wreaths in the snow at Arlington. It went on the Pentagon website and it went viral. And we literally received thousands of emails, phone calls, messages, mail. It was just incredible, the outpouring of people that wanted to participate. So it never really was an intentional thing. It was a family thing. And by the time that we were to take Breeze in 2006, we had been contacted by so many people. Can you stop here on your way to Arlington? And it got out of control. We had about 100 requests for us to send wreaths to other cemeteries, which we couldn't send 5,000 wreaths to everybody, but we did these ceremonial wreaths of one for each branch of the military plus POW MIA, sent out to about 100 people. The Civil Air Patrol kids in every one of those locations did a ceremony, and we were off to the races. So by 2007, the outpouring to participate was huge. So the 501(c)(3) was formed, and we've been holding on for dear life ever since because people want to participate. They want to remember, honor, and teach. And even that mission came from the voices of veterans and Gold Star families that we met and encountered in that first year and a half.
Wreaths Across America has touched so many lives and so many families. Tell me a little bit about the reach that you have across the country. How many cemeteries are you involved in, and how many wreaths are placed every year?
From 5,000 wreaths for many years up until 2006. Fast forward now, this year we had ceremonies at 5,994 locations. We have well over 3 million volunteers. And this year we placed 3.1 million wreaths. Every one of those locations is a volunteer that has stepped up to take the mission. By the way, we are a year round mission. We're very well known for placing the wreaths, but the remembrance, the honoring, and most importantly to me, the teaching are what we do year round. And we do that through so many avenues that we don't want people to lose sight of that or lose sight of the fact that we have that reach because of those people in the local communities that go to the cemetery, they organize, they gather sponsorship, and they make this happen. And it's just overwhelming. And so the heart of the American people is beating pretty strong. It's wonderful to see.
Tell me about what all of this means to you and to your family.
What it means to us personally, though, and I can tell you how it changed our lives because we were just saying thank you. And then I remember earlier, it was in 2006 in the summertime, a guy from the military order of the world wars. He called us and said, I want to come up. I can't think he was from Connecticut. I'd like to meet with you. And we're like, why would you want to meet with us? And we met him in a little restaurant, little tiny restaurant. It was in like literally in the front of a house here in Harrington, Maine. And we sat with him and we said, we don't know what to do with this. And he just looked at us and I said most about it. He said, for whatever reason, the country is listening to you. Talk about the veterans now, please. Use your voice. So it changed our lives, and then our little family, well, it's not very little, but our family, we have 6 kids and 9 grandkids, were introduced to some of the world's most amazing people. Gold Star families, veterans, active duty, just so many people doing amazing things like what you guys do, and it changed our lives. It made our kids understand. Our kids grew up with best friends who were Gold Star families, and they attended ceremonies and okay, here I go, going into crying mode. An example of that is my 18, he just turned 18-year-old grandson. He graduates next June, and he just joined the Air National Guard. And he did that knowing what could happen. He did that having been a kid when he was, 8 years old, rode into Arlington National Cemetery, sitting in the lap of a truck driver whose son was buried in a grave here in Maine, but who died after 9/11. So it really heightened our appreciation of freedom and encouraged us to carry out that teach mission. It's so important to make it personal. These Gold Star families want us to know that these are lives lost. Don't ever lump them into a statistic. They talk about the dash, their birth date of their loved ones and the date that they died. And they don't want you to talk about the day they died. They want the dash, what they lived in between, who they were, and that played an important part for us this year in setting our theme. We pick a theme every year, and now that thinking is what led us to our theme for this year.
Tell us a little bit more about your theme for 2026.
Well, the theme for 2026, and it's funny because they look at one thing they look to me to do, and they say, "What are you going to do for theme?" And I thought, I never know. And then something will happen. We do so many interviews with kids, and you'll ask the kid, "What is a veteran? What is a veteran?" And it's almost a standard thing. And hearing these mothers say, "Remember life." Well, I was watching, of all things, I was watching the movie Home Alone 2 with my 7-year-old grandson. And it was a scene in the park where the little kid's talking to the pigeon lady. And she's, saying, well, they've forgotten me. And the words from the kid were, maybe they don't forget about you, but they forget to remember you. It still choked me up because we always say, like, we'll get together on Memorial Day, remember the fallen, remember them. And every interview you hear, people will say they gave their lives, they gave their sacrifice. We want to remember the individual and we want to give them voice. And there's so many opportunities where you can. You can go and find way back to the revolution. You can find quotes from people, young people who died in battle and the last word that they spoke and what freedom meant to them. So the remember me is to specifically take it from the collective down to the individual and change the question from what is a veteran to who. Who was that veteran? And it has been so interesting in doing that as we're putting together clips and quotes and stories of people that, had everything going for them and took that opportunity when, like after 9/11, and left their lives and signed up to go and fight, just trying to teach children so they understand what there is to love about this country and why it's worth fighting for. And it's the word of those individuals that will help us teach that to the next generation. And that's why this year's theme is Remember Me.
It's America's 250 this year. Lots going on. Anything you can share with us to look forward to?
We have so many opportunities in front of us right now, and we will be going coast to coast, literally. We're working out, we're revisiting a lot of our locations. We love to go and stop and visit, those that are doing the volunteer work. But I think want to take every opportunity. We're going to be working with the 250th commemorative and working with a lot of other organizations to, just teach kids 250 years of freedom and putting as much love for country in their hearts as we can so that we can enjoy another 250. So it's an exciting year. I wish we had better plans, but we're being kind of inundated right now and picking opportunities and just we're very excited for this year.
Tell us a little bit about the three pillars that make up your mission: remember, honor, teach. And if we could actually tackle it just through the lens of your volunteers.
Well, remember is obviously remember the fallen, remember those that served, and remember the veterans who served and passed away, and just to honor their memory. One of the things that we do is to place wreaths. We have other programs. We have our veterans. We call it the dog tag program, and again, that was a program that started quite by accident way back in 2007 or 8. A couple of Gold Star family members, they loved being in Maine. They loved being out in the woods where the balsam fir is grown. And so one day my husband said, I'm going to give them each a tree. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, no, I'm going to make a dog tag with their loved one's name on it. I'm going to give them the tree. And it's their tree. And all I need to do is harvest the tips, the ends of the balsam every third year, make it into wreaths, and that wreath will go on a veteran's grave. And so we took the 2 ladies out, and they picked a tree, and they sobbed. And it was for them a living memorial because of the fact that every third year, that life would come forth from that tree and be placed on another veteran's grave. So that was very moving. And both of those ladies, very, very talkative. And so they just started telling everybody, oh my gosh, you've got to go up and tag a tree for your loved one. And we're closing in on 20,000 dog tags on the tip land now. It's a free program. If you can't come to Maine to have a tree with a dog tag, we do it for you. It's online at Wreaths It's called the Remembrance Tree plan. And we have groups travel from California to place dog tags for their patrons on the tip land. And it's something to see because if you drive out through the tip land as the sun is setting and rising, and there's this twinkling on the trees. It's just been phenomenal. There's actually a Medal of Honor park there that's 8 acres. It has a dog tag in every tree, one for every Medal of Honor recipient in the United States military. So those are ways we remember. We have an incredible teach program. We just reached a milestone. That's free and downloadable at reachacrossamerica.org or Teacher Pay Teacher. That's put together by a Gold Star mom, retired teacher Cindy Tatum, and it's geared around the attributes of the military and the selflessness, and all these lesson plans are free. We just reached the milestone of reaching 1 million kids, and it's only about a 3-year program since Cindy's taken over. So those are the things we do. We have a radio station, as you know, that we now have 110 different VSOs who participate on that. We also have a program that we give back during the year. It's called our $5 back program. And other VSOs are civic groups who want to raise dollars and we work with groups as big as the Gary Sinise Foundation or as small as the community is trying to raise dollars for a guide dog. Every sponsorship that they get for their local cemetery, $5 from that sponsorship goes back to the local community. And we've given back over $31 million to civic groups and VSOs to support veterans causes in their communities. So all kinds of things that we do year round to promote the mission. It all culminates in December when you place the wreaths and you say the names. And I'm running on, but I do want to say that from that very first time that my husband placed a wreath, you couldn't help but say the name, which makes that personal connection to someone who served. So you could be free. And we have a saying at Wreaths Across America that a person dies twice. The first time is when your heart stops and the life leaves your body, but the last time is when your name is spoken for the very last time. So as we placed 3.1 million wreaths in December last year, we raised the names of 3.1 million heroes, and that's impactful, and it means everything to the Gold Star families, but it means equally as much to those kids who hear that, who will be the future.
Is there an individual story that you wanted to share? Maybe someone's grave that you stopped by, whether it was in 2025 on Wreaths Day or a previous year that you wanted to share today, something that's resonated with you?
Oh gosh, there are so many. And the Ghost Step families actually called different things that happened, either on that convoy, which we take a week now to travel to Arlington and stop at schools and all those things. And we have Ghost Step families with us and veterans. And so they call them God winks, and there are so many of them. But one of the earliest ones, I'll never forget this, it was 2007. And this Ghost Step mom from Massachusetts had contacted me. It was the first year her son was buried at Section 60, and it was the first year since they'd lost him, and she wanted me to meet her there to place a wreath, and, so I agreed to do it, and we walked down to Section 60. She had her daughter go and stand by her son's grave so nobody else would put a wreath on the grave, and we got to the grave, and we got down on our knees, and she put the wreath on the grave, and she fixed the bow and ran her fingers over his name, and when we stood up, she looked at me, and she put her hand squarely on my shoulders, and she said, "Don't remember that my son died. Remember that he lived because his life is what he gave." And I will never forget that. And the epiphany to me of how I'm not different than these mothers. They have the same love for their children. They had the same dreams for their children. You know, she never had a grandchild or son who was of that age that my kids were having grandkids, and the sacrifice and how important it is that we make people feel as personal about it as I did in that very moment. In that very moment, the gravity of what I have because of what somebody else gave will stay with me forever. And you see that. And it goes back to when I talk about people who have been involved with Read Across America, from our public relations person to, people who worked in the office for years. The interactions that they've had have changed their lives. It truly has, and I am so blessed. The biggest blessing that I have is the exposure that my children and grandchildren and my family has had to that window into the cost of freedom and how important it is. And that's why, for me, the biggest thing that we do is teach and embrace those families and let them know that we're there.
Your children, your grandchildren, this is woven into their lives. What do they say about the work that you're doing?
Well, they're all pretty actively involved. My grandson that just joined the reserves, he said his first year was in utero, and he'd been everything. My whole family volunteers. I have two daughter-in-laws that are very actively involved, and I do want to touch on this. I know we had talked earlier before coming on the air about volunteerism, and I can't not mention because my daughter-in-law Sarah is very active with transportation and logistics because we have, 5,994 locations that have to have these wreaths delivered in a very short period of time. They have to be made and put on these trucks. Well, we turn into a logistics hub up here in Maine, and these trucks drive from all over the country and come here and get loaded and then drive to locations as far away as California. I'm going to say probably 95% of the deliveries are volunteer trucking companies and drivers. And without that, we couldn't do this because it literally would cost more to ship the wreath than it would to produce a wreath. So we're very dependent on the volunteerism of the trucking industry, and I mean very, very dependent. And they have stepped up in such a big way. They're proud to participate, and just the amount of volunteers that takes and the structure that it takes. And we even have some large logistics companies that lend us, their methods of how they do logistics. So everybody comes together. Interestingly enough, what is in the summertime just a big empty space, my husband turned into a truckers lounge for the season, and Tyson's Foods and trucking, their trucking company come up here. They have a food team and they cook literally thousands of meals so that these truckers coming in from all of the country, in excess of 800 trucks, they come into this little community. And I mean little, where population isn't over 500 here. And they come into this community and they're fed, they get a chance to shower, and they're loved on by Gold Star families that have come in to volunteer. And I'll tell you, the North Pole hasn't got anything on Columbia Falls, Maine, and I'm very proud of that. How everybody just participates, and it's all done out of generosity and love for the country. And that's why the Gold Star families are so drawn to Reach Across America. It gives them an opportunity to talk about their loved ones and to teach. And they're so inspiring because those Gold Star families who've given the most love this country the most. And that's inspiring. Sorry, I get emotional because there is so much good, and people need to hear how much good there is.
We talk about precious cargo. I can't imagine what they're feeling as they're driving that across the country, being part of that huge effort.
They're so proud to participate. So many of them are veterans, you know? So some are Gold Star fathers, Gold Star brothers, and they're so well received by our volunteers. And it's a gargantuan effort, and somehow it always comes together and touches so many people. I mean, we had over 800 new locations last year alone, and just growing at an incredible rate. And that speaks so well for people understanding that we have to teach and we have to understand that freedom isn't free. And we're one generation away from losing it if we don't do that.
How can folks get involved, and what are the ways that they can support Wreaths Across America and the mission?
You can go to wreathsacrossamerica.org. And if we're not in your community, we can be. We're in every state. Anywhere there's a veteran buried, we will participate. And you just go on and you can find all that information. If you're not ready to do that, you can attend a ceremony. We're always looking for people to sponsor. Sponsorship doesn't just place a wreath. As I said before, it supports all these other programs. You can go on and sponsor a wreath. You can give of something you have to give. If they have a event in your local community, reach out and see if you can't sponsor a wreath, what else you can do. Could you take coffee to the volunteers? Could you help unload the truck when it comes? Could you bring a veteran to the ceremony? There's so many ways to participate. We have a real robust online presence that you can go to the page and you will see on each location's page ways that you can get involved. And this year, we talked a little bit about what we're doing, and it's much on the lines of what Memory Anchor does. We wanted to individual stories, and so we're having a real push this year to have people share individual stories. And if you go to our Facebook pages, you go to the radio station, you'll hear about the ways that we're doing this, and especially the website. If you have a story to share about your loved one that served and a picture that we can share to make it personal, those are the stories that people need to hear and see so that they appreciate their freedom. So there's a lot of opportunities. Watch Facebook pages, readcrossamerica.org. We appreciate any and all help that we can get.
Well, Karen, before we wrap up, is there a final message that you'd like to share?
Again, I'd go back to what I said about, instead of just saying we honor the veterans, who are the veterans? Not what is a veteran, but who is a veteran? Because when we emphasize that, I think it's easier for young people to see that they are that veteran, that they are that person, that they are the future of the country is in their hands. So be introduced through the stories of these people to who they are so that when and if there's a call to action again, people step up out of love for country and love for each other. We all remember 9/11. I remember 9/12, and I remember people coming together, and I hate for that. It's like a family, family can be estranged and then somebody dies and everybody comes together. We need to maintain that 9/12 feeling every day so that we're strong and we don't fight with each other. We fight for freedom and we fight for what's right together. And Reach Across America is way more than a bunch of people from Maine placing wreaths everywhere. It's bringing the country together to remember, honor, teach. Gives them something a little tangible to bring everybody together, and then talk about principles that have been the principles of this country for 250 years.
Karen Worcester, Executive Director for Wreaths Across America. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Story Behind the Stone is available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on the Wreaths Across America radio network, on iHeartRadio, Audacity, and TuneIn. Just search for Wreath. Thank you for tuning in.